presentation. So again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Glenn Sarasoletti, and I serve as Assistant Dean of Students and Director of the Center for Community Engagement at the University of Rochester. And let me allow my co-presenter to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name's Emerson. I use they, them pronouns. I am our Rochester Youth Year and Urban Fellows alum, and I'm the Vista leader for this year's program year of Rochester Youth Year.
Thank you so much, Emerson. So we are going to share with you some information and slides, giving you an overview and some background about the program. Some of you may be familiar to varying degrees with one or both of these programs already, so please bear with us. Others might be brand new, and so we welcome you and look forward to sharing this information with you and answering any questions you may have. So the programs are both hosted by the Center for Community Engagement here at the University of Rochester. The center is housed in the university's undergraduate college of Arts, Sciences, and Engineering. And we are the place that connects students and faculty as well to communities beyond campus in ways that can deepen learning, foster personal and professional growth, and benefit the communities and community organizations with which they are engaging. And we do that through a variety of ways that span from the curricular or credit-bearing community engaged learning projects, which you see on the left side of your screen. We have a certificate of achievement that students can complete in community engaged learning, where they're taking courses that are taught in partnership with a non-academic community partner and earning credit. We work closely with faculty members who are developing and delivering these courses and supporting that work and supporting the community partners who collaborate on those courses. Our programming also, though, encompasses a variety of non-credit or co-curricular civic engagement programs that you see on the right side of the screen here, including our nonpartisan political engagement efforts, mentorship programs, days of service or engagement, particularly for our incoming students each year. And the focus of our presentation today will be on our national service programs. And with that, let me turn it over to Emerson.
Yeah, so we have two national service programs, both of which you're about to learn about today. We've got our full year of service program through AmeriCorps Vista, which is Rochester Youth Year. And we have our 10-week summer program also through the AmeriCorps Vista program as summer associates. That is our Rochester Urban Fellows program.
As Emerson said, both programs are part of the National Service Network and sponsored by the federal AmeriCorps agency. AmeriCorps has been around since 1993. During the Clinton administration. The Vista part of AmeriCorps actually goes back to 1965, so decades before that. During the War on Poverty during the Johnson administration in 1965 is when Vista was first launched. Vista stands for Volunteers in Service to America. And this slide here gives you an overview of the National Service Network, with AmeriCorps being the overarching agency. Vista is one of 4 streams of service under AmeriCorps. NCCC, the National Community Conservation Corps, focuses on environmental stewardship and youth work in teams and travel around to conduct projects focused on environmental stewardship. State and national programs are focused on direct service, and we're blessed to have a couple of wonderful state and national programs right here in the Rochester community, with those being the Rochester AmeriCorps program based at Monroe Community College and the Flower City AmeriCorps program based at the city of Rochester. And then AmeriCorps Seniors is also a program that spans back to the War on Poverty in the 1960s to engage older members of our community in different ways and serving their communities. So the University of Rochester Center for Community Engagement serves as an intermediary or umbrella sponsor under the AmeriCorps Vista in hosting our Rochester Youth Year Fellowship Program and the Rochester Urban Fellows Summer Associate Program. And the focus of our presentation today is on the opportunity for your organization to become one of our partner organizations in hosting an AmeriCorps Vista member either for a full year or a Vista Summer Associate for our 10-week Rochester Urban Fellows Summer Program. I do also just want to acknowledge the Rochester Regional Network that is spotlighted on the left side of the screen here. That is our advisory board, which includes representatives from other area colleges around Rochester, also from previous partner organizations who have hosted our members, as well as program alums. And we've recently expanded that network to include representatives from some of the other AmeriCorps National Service programs as well. So just to give you a sense of the terrain, the lay of the land for the National Service Network and how our programs fit into that network.
And that brings us back to our programs. The goals of our programs are included in these 3 bullet points. The first is to combat educational, economic, and health inequity through community-centered leadership and asset development here in Rochester. The second is to strengthen connections between Rochester area colleges and the Rochester community. And the third is to prevent what we call bright flight by engaging recent graduates of our area colleges in the community in which they attended college. And how we do that is by engaging our recent graduates and our current undergraduates in service with a community organization in Rochester through both our Urban Fellows and Rochester Youth Year programs.
And I want to emphasize the importance of those partnerships for us in delivering the program. Certainly the community knowledge that are represented by our partner organizations, our host sites, is invaluable to us. We couldn't deliver these programs, couldn't accomplish the anti-poverty and capacity building outcomes that we seek to achieve without mutually beneficial and collaborative relationship with our community partner organizations. Our projects for both Rochester Youth Year and the Summer Urban Fellows Program fall into 3 of the AmeriCorps anti-poverty focus areas, and those are listed on the screen here: education, economic opportunity, and healthy futures. And I'm going to paste into the chat a link to the AmeriCorps current performance measures. And that's more of a deep dive. It's a multi-page document that you're welcome. I invite you to click through actually and take a look at. We'll talk in a little bit about the proposal and application process for proposing to host one of our members through either of these programs. And that is really where it gives you an opportunity to think about the work of your work as an individual and the work of your organization and how it fits into these focus areas. And how it fits in with the standardized performance measures that AmeriCorps has developed to try to track progress, measurable and measure progress towards these focus areas and programs all across the country, not just here in Rochester or New York more broadly. I do want to emphasize a couple of key points about AmeriCorps Vista service. Capacity building is a key facet, particularly for the full year Rochester Youth Year AmeriCorps Vista members. Our summer participants and Rochester Urban Fellows have more leeway and flexibility to engage in direct service activities, and we'll talk more about this in just a few minutes. But capacity building is a key component of AmeriCorps Vista service, building the capacity of organizations to deliver services that alleviate poverty for youth and families in our community. And the anti-poverty focus is also a key facet and requirement for all of our programs. So we're always looking for projects that will, in some measurable ways, either through education, economic opportunity, and or healthy futures, to help to alleviate poverty for youth and families here in Rochester. And I'm sure you all know, are well aware of the alarming and concerning data about the concentration of poverty, particularly in certain urban neighborhoods in our community. And again, we're committed to working in partnership with organizations in these three focus areas to try to address and alleviate those conditions.
So in the next few slides, we'll be discussing each program at length. First, starting with Rochester Youth Year. RYY recruits recent graduates from our Rochester area colleges to serve at our partner organizations for full-time service, which is around 35 to 40 hours a week for 1 calendar year. You as a partner organization are eligible to receive up to 3 years of support for each project that you present. Our Rochester Youth Year members are performing indirect capacity building service. So back to the capacity building, as Glenn was discussing. And indirect service, meaning it is not a direct service to impact the beneficiaries of these programs. It's indirect to build your capacity to serve your beneficiaries. Rochester Youth Year as a program provides both member support for our recent undergraduates and we provide site support for our host sites throughout the process of the year and throughout the 3 years of support that that host sites are eligible for. Rochester Urban Fellows is our summer program. We recruit undergraduates, rising sophomores to rising seniors from our Rochester area colleges. They will serve with your organizations for around 30 hours a week for 10 weeks this summer. Our start date will be May 23rd this year, which means that it'll go through July 29th. It says TBC on the slide, but I think we have confirmed that since then, correct, Glenn?
Still some chance, subject to change. We'll get confirmation from AmeriCorps about start dates for the Vista Summer Associates in the coming weeks. But fingers crossed, I think that's a safe tentative dates for the Urban Fellows program for this summer.
Awesome. So somewhere in and around that area of time. Urban Fellows perform indirect capacity building services as well as direct service, so interacting directly with your beneficiaries. Once a week, they attend urban issues seminars here at the University of Rochester. And again, as with Rochester Youth Year, Urban Fellows provides both site and member support. So you might be asking what the difference is. On a glance, Rochester Youth Year members are serving for 365 days, August through July. Urban Fellows are serving for 10 weeks in the summer, around May through July. Rochester Youth Year members serve full-time 35 to 40 hours a week with their host site organization. And they will be attending monthly meetings and trainings with us at our Rochester Youth Year. As opposed to Urban Fellows, who will be serving just under full-time at your organization, so around 30 hours a week with your organization, and they will be attending weekly seminars with us at the U of R. Another key difference is that Rochester Youth Year members are only allowed to do indirect service. And Urban Fellows, there's a little more flexibility to do direct service as well. And again, Rochester Youth Year is for recent graduates or soon to be graduates from our Rochester area colleges, as it's a full year. And Urban Fellows is for our undergraduates in the area, as it's for the summer, which is perfect for in between our semesters.
I'm sorry, did you say we can or cannot ask questions? We're going to wait till the end.
Go ahead, Kelvin. If you have a question specific to this slide.
Yeah, the indirect versus direct. What is indirect?
So indirect service can encompass several different types of service. Again, it's sort of focusing on capacity building activities like volunteer recruitment, could be fundraising. So grant writing could be, fundraising, event planning and implementation. Could also be, researching or benchmarking with other programs to compare and develop programming. Could be curriculum development. Emerson, other examples of indirect service come to mind?
Yeah, you pretty much got it. I'm sorry?
Just not, they're not answering phones, they're not doing filing, they're not doing those type of things.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, it can't be any administrative tasks, sort of routine administrative task for the office, but it also can't be any direct service to end beneficiaries. So and we delve into this much in much more depth later on with our host site supervisors when we conduct a supervisor orientation. But it's important and good that you ask now, because we certainly want you to have clear understanding and expectations for what you could accomplish, particularly with Rochester Youth Year, which is really needs to be focused entirely on capacity building. One way to think about direct service versus indirect service is, I often use the example of, say, your organization is providing tutoring or mentoring services to youth. And if so, direct service would be involvement in actually delivering that tutoring or mentoring to the youth, to the end, in this case, the youth or the end beneficiaries and recipients of that service. And one way to think about it, it's direct service if at the end of the term of service, if the AmeriCorps member goes away, if the service is no longer being provided, that's a clear indication that it was direct service, right? If they're providing the tutoring ends when they complete their term of service and go and move on to whatever's next for them. Whereas capacity building is, perhaps they're recruiting and training other volunteers to provide those tutoring and mentoring services. Perhaps they're, researching and developing curriculum for training tutors and mentors to provide those services. Perhaps they're developing promotional materials or social media channels, content to recruit mentees or students to be tutored. All of those fall into the category of capacity building. And the idea is at the end of the term of service, when the AmeriCorps member goes away, that the services can continue because they've built the capacity of the organization to deliver those services, and they're not delivering the services directly. So hopefully that clarifies the distinction a little bit. It's a really important question to understand, particularly for the Rochester Youth Year, full year AmeriCorps Vista Fellowship. I also just want to underscore that both programs welcome not only students and recent graduates from the University of Rochester, but as Emerson said, also from other area colleges, and especially with the Summer Urban Fellows program. Sometimes we'll have students who are from Rochester, but attending college elsewhere and back for the summer, and they'll apply and participate in the program. And both programs have long had a tradition of welcoming those students. So, but our hope is always that the participants, our members, have some connection to the area, whether they're from here originally or they've attended college and graduated from one of our area colleges. And I think, Emerson can speak to this, and Graham Hughes, who has now joined us and will be speaking in a few minutes, is also an alum of our Rochester Youth Year Fellowship program. And I think both of them can attest to the transformational nature of participating in the program. But before we transition over to hearing from our community partner representatives, a couple more things. First of all, a review of expectations, what we're expecting or looking for in organizations that we want to partner with for these respective programs. In both cases, we're looking for organizations that are not-for-profit organizations, 501c3 status, or else a government agency, municipal office, or it could be a school as well. We've worked with both public schools and charter schools, which is, of course, is a form of public school, and even have worked with private schools occasionally in the past. We're capacity for the organization, particularly with Rochester Youth Year, this is a capacity building program, but it's important to have some capacity already in place in order to supervise and support a student in these programs. So at least one full-time staff member is sort of the threshold that we're looking for an organization, and to have the capacity to supervise. And even if you meet that threshold, sometimes the availability of a full-time staff member may be stretched thin, and even with more than one staff members can be stretched thin. So we always want to make sure that host organizations have the capacity to supervise, and even to mentor, and that can be sort of the time capacity. We expect that the supervisors, particularly at the beginning of a term of service, will be available to provide the needed onboarding and orientation for our members, but throughout their term of service, we'll be available to meet with them on a weekly basis, or even answer questions daily as needed. So having that capacity, and I would say too, a disposition to supervise. I think a lot of our host sites have found that it can be really fun and invigorating to supervise and mentor participants in these programs. Sometimes it does require helping them learn and grow professional skills and so on, but by and large it can be a wonderful experience. For Rochester Youth Year, we convene quarterly meetings in addition to required supervisor training prior to the beginning of the service year. And we've found that our partners really enjoy making connections and networking with the other supervisors and organizations, and drawing inspiration and ideas from one another. We expect our host organizations to provide service-related travel reimbursement for the students or recent graduates who are participating in both programs. So if there's travel that's needed, whether it's locally or a little bit beyond that, the expectation is that your organization would cover the cost of those expenses, again, both for the full year Rochester Youth Year and the summer program as well. Kelvin, a question?
So we're not talking about travel to and from work, correct?
Correct. Absolutely. Yep. The travel to and from the service site is, commuting expenses, and as with any job or position, the students are expected to manage that themselves, and we provide them some support in figuring out how to navigate, whether it's public transportation or driving their private vehicle, or walking or biking, what have you, helping to navigate.
Again, I've been working with your program for several years. I don't remember ever seeing the travel reimbursement piece. Has it always been there?
It has. Yep.
Is that a deal breaker?
Well, we can talk more certainly offline if you have particular questions or concerns about that. Often I will say, sites will, they'll provide travel either with other staff to help the student get around, and so in that case there's no travel reimbursement needed, but certainly if the request is that the student use their personal vehicle to be traveling around, that the site provide reimbursement. There have been some instances where we've had organizations that was administratively complicated, and we've been able to work out arrangements whereby they paid that through a sort of a different means. So we've been creative in working out the means to do that.
Yes, just exactly as you said. We often go out in the same vehicles. Our staff would take them out, but oftentimes they said, "No, I want to drive my own car." Okay. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, you know, we're happy to sort of follow up with you know, to address particular questions or concerns of that sort. Certainly, if you're giving them the option and an alternative for transportation that wouldn't require them to use their personal vehicle, I feel like that satisfies our expectation that you're
Okay.
providing that transportation for
Very
those
good. Thank you.
service-related travels. Yep. For both programs, we do ask for and expect a cost share payment for the program. Part of this structure of how AmeriCorps support works is the members, through the grant that we have with AmeriCorps, our members receive a living allowance stipend. That's a very modest stipend designed to sort of be at a poverty level living allowance. And that's paid to them directly by the federal government. We are required to reimburse the federal government for a portion of those expenses. And so the cost share for our partner organizations are part of what allows us to be able to do that. For the full year projects, $5,000 is our cost share rate currently for first year projects, and $6,000 for returning projects. That's for projects that move into their second or third year. And those rates are confirmed for the next year, 2023, 2024. For the summer Urban Fellows program, the cost share rate is $750 per student. So there is a financial component that's required, but I will say, you know, compared to the cost of staffing a full-time member, full-time staff member, this, you know, very, very affordable, and also compared to other national service programs with which we benchmark in the area and even across the state, our rates tend to be lower than others. So we're proud of being able to keep those at a low rate in order to facilitate this important work in the community. Then the last slide and thing that we want to cover before we turn it over to our partners is just to talk about the application and proposal process. It's similar for both programs. It's a little bit more extensive and involved for the full year Rochester Youth Year Fellowship opportunity. Both programs require a project proposal. In the case of Rochester Youth Year, that includes not only an executive summary, but a section about how the project will strengthen the community, how your organization will manage the project, including assessing progress toward the goals of the project, as well as your organizational capacity to provide that supervision that I talked about in the previous slide, and to you know, to commit to making the cost share payment, but also ensuring that your organization is accessible. And in terms of being in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act for members who have disabilities. In addition, for the Rochester Youth Year, we asked for, actually for both programs, we asked for a draft of the VISTA assignment description, or VAD as it's sometimes called, which includes an overall goal for the project. It may include anywhere between 1 and 5 objectives. There's really no limit on the number, but beyond 5 is probably more, you know, more than we normally see. And then under each objective, individual activities that the student or recent graduate, that the fellow would carry out with their project. And thank you, Emerson, for pasting into the chat there the draft VISTA assignment description template, along with the link to our online applications for both the Rochester Youth Year and Urban Fellows program. The Urban Fellows program includes all of those components, but it's a more streamlined proposal because it is a shorter term program, a smaller project, therefore. So just an executive summary and information about how you'd manage the project, as well as that draft VISTA assignment description summarizing the goal for the project, any individual objectives underneath that goal, steps that you would take to reach that goal, and the individual activities within each objective. And so it really maps out the steps that'll be necessary in order for the student to accomplish, what it is that you're hoping to accomplish in terms of building the capacity with the project, delivering the services that your organization is looking to deliver. And so that way, it really provides a nice framework when when the student does arrive at your site, to be able to onboard them and get them oriented. In fact, certainly with the full year program, we provide those that information to them in advance, so that they can be reviewing it and preparing and understanding in some depth what your project is all about. With that, we'll continue on. I'm pleased to welcome some of our community partners. Again, we will open up to questions at the end, but I'm really grateful and indebted that we have 3 dedicated partners who are currently supervising members in our Rochester Youth Year Fellowship Program. And in fact, they're all 3 of our supervisors here are in the final year of hosting members. In some cases, they've hosted multiple projects, and as I mentioned earlier, Graham is also an alum of the Rochester Youth Year program. So with no further ado, please welcome Melanie Bloodworth from the Girl Scouts of Western New York, Aaron Thompson of the MK Gandhi Institute for Nonviolence, and Graham Hughes from City Roots Community Land Trust. And Melanie, perhaps can I turn it over to you first to talk about the projects that you've hosted with Rochester Youth Year?
Absolutely. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Melanie Bloodworth, and I'm the Senior Director of Girl Experience for Girl Scouts of Western New York. And we have been a longtime partner with Rochester Youth Year. We're actually in the 3rd year of our 2nd project. Our first project, partnering with RYY, was focusing around STEM programming. If you're familiar with Girl Scouts, and if not, most girls who experience Girl Scouts, they are doing that through a volunteer. So our Girl Scouts of the USA came out with lots and lots of fantastic STEM badges and programming for our Girl Scouts. And our volunteers are the ones that facilitate that programming with our girls. And we found that our volunteers were a bit reluctant, didn't necessarily come from STEM backgrounds, didn't necessarily have the confidence to do this really important programming with our young people. Really with the goal, of course, with women being underrepresented in STEM fields and STEM careers, our first project was really focusing on building the capacity of our volunteers to be able to do this programming with girls. So introducing girls to topics around cybersecurity, robotics, engineering, chemistry, so much good programming, but we really needed to focus on what did our volunteers need to feel like they were confident and comfortable to do this programming with our girls. So our first project focused a lot on trainings, development of resources, and really just making sure that girls were exposed to this programming. We are currently in our 3rd year of our 2nd project. Our 2nd project has been focusing on expanding our organization capacity around diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. So really doing a lot of research, baselining where we are compared to other Girl Scout councils, compared to other youth servicing agencies, really doing a lot of process mapping and focus groups and surveys to really help build our capacity to look at the ways that we're recruiting our volunteers, recruiting our Girl Scouts, looking at the supports that we provide our families, our volunteers, looking at our programming, looking at ensuring that our programming is inclusive, that our physical properties are more accessible. So we are in our 3rd year, as I said, of that project. A really exciting piece from that project is because of the supports of the 2 years of an RYY fellow, giving the organization, building our capacity, helping us develop a DEI staff committee, bringing in outside experts like Aaron and the Gandhi Institute, is really laid a foundation to be able for our CEO to propose to our board the development of a DEIB coordinator. So we just we have a brand new position at our organization that really I do not think would be in existence if it wasn't for the RYY project and the work of our 2 vistas that we had the first 2 years of the project. So it absolutely built our capacity, and it's just a really exciting that we're in this place in our 3rd year of the project, really knowing that there's going to be some sustainability after our Vista member finishes with us. So that's a little bit about our 2 projects, and really my experience with supervising RYY members has been a pleasure. I'm just, Glenn and I have talked many times about the past members, and I still stay in touch with pretty much all of our Vista members. The types of folks coming in are energetic, motivated, skilled, and really ready to make an impact in the community. So it really has been a pleasure to be able to supervise the members. I am also I'm a Rochester AmeriCorps alumni, and I really feel like for myself, being a supervisor is a way for me to give back, just like my mentors who I had my placements with mentored me through my years of service, and how impactful that was for myself, for my career, and where I am. I just kind of see supervising RYY as another way for me to give back to the community as well.
Thanks so much, Melanie. Aaron, if I may, I'd like to turn to you next to share about the partnerships and projects that you've undertaken with the MK Gandhi Institute for Nonviolence.
For sure. Thank you, Glenn. Hello, everybody. So I am Aaron Thompson. I currently serve as co-director of the MK Gandhi Institute for Nonviolence. We're headquartered over on South Plymouth Ave in the Plymouth Exchange neighborhood. And our mission broadly is to increase the peace, as I like to say, in as many ways as we can. We have 4 main areas of focus that we do that through, and those are nonviolence education, anti-racism work, restorative practices, and sustainability, environmental, physical sustainability, and human resources sustainability. We have been involved with RYY since 2016, I believe, and it has been tremendously valuable. Each Vista has brought has been a spectacular addition to staff, helping us with our capacity, with effectiveness of our programming, and sustainability of it. Because we've been involved for some time, there are any number of kind of programs that I could speak to, but the 2 that most clearly revolve around anti-poverty initiatives would be our school climate transformation program, which we got off the ground starting in 2015. And the aim basically is to aid youth who are most at risk for dropping out from school, and those who are affected by high rates of poverty, with the goal of supporting them and the schools that they are attending in developing strategies and implementing strategies for increased school engagement, suspension reduction, graduation rate improvement. The aim being to break the cycle of often multi-generational poverty that they are contending with, and to interrupt, avoid, break the school to prison pipeline that affects a disproportionate amount of especially Rochester City School District youth. So we developed programming called a Help Zone, and we have staff in the city schools that provide socio-emotional kind of triage areas that aim to do those things, allow the students to have more time in the classroom, creating a meaningful and rich learning environment, which involves dealing with the students and their teachers, and increasing graduation rates year over year. So our Vista at different times of, depending on what year particular Vista was involved in, has helped us research and write grants in support of the school climate transformation program, which went toward maintaining sustainability and bolstering our capacity to fund that programming. The first year, for instance, that we ran this particular program, we were in 2 schools, and it was twice a week. And through the efforts largely of our Vista that year, we were able to expand our footprint to 5 schools, and we were had a presence there. It was 5 days a week at 5 schools. And so we were able to about triple the number of youth that we served on a daily basis through the bolstered financing and funding that we were able to achieve. And so in addition to kind of the front end and doing the grant related work, our Vistas also helped to construct and administer program evaluations, which were critical in our assessing the effectiveness of the work that we were doing. Vista was also included in our work in getting the RCSD to reconsider and to overhaul its code of conduct, which prior to that taking place was had a lot more punitive and unconstructive ways of dealing with issues that arose in the course of the school day, which was directly feeding to in-school and out-of-school suspensions. And so Vista was involved with a lot of research, formulating drafts of the proposal changes and the process of getting those kind of pushed through the system with the RCSD. Another project that's been long running is the community garden, which has grown substantially, again, with the efforts of our Vistas involved. And this is an organic garden that we have on our grounds. It's a series of raised beds that we host, and the goal here is to help feed the community through distribution of fresh organic produce throughout the entire growing season. The Plex neighborhood is categorized as a food desert, so we're looking to offset that directly, but also to provide education for those interested in learning about gardening and raised beds from assuming no prior knowledge. Teaching them about gardening itself, incubating their, being the place where they first get to familiarize themselves with what it takes to look after, care for, grow food themselves. And with, the outcomes that we're aiming for here being to foster and encourage our local, especially the hyper-local folk living right around the Gandhi Institute, to take some of these practices and implement them in their own yards and such. Also to be a convener of folks local to have conversations around what resource sharing looks like, what community building looks like, what cooperative economics potential there is in the neighborhood. And so our Vistas have been instrumental in bringing both of those projects along. As to my experience supervising, and I'm running kind of long, so I'll try and be brief here. So The ROI program actually gave me my first direct supervising experience through the Gandhi Institute, and it has been it's been it's been wonderful for me personally. There is tremendous support, and there's steady communication between the host organization and ROI contacts that aim to keep the Vista's assignment constructive, falling within the parameters of the established assignment description, and also meeting the needs of the host organization. So the two-way communication is excellent. I also have appreciated the concerted effort made to encourage networking and sharing of best practices among supervisors. So those, these are takeaways that will continue to resonate and be valuable, whether we're directly involved with ROI or not. And I'd love to talk more when I'm not using up all the time in this particular programming. So I'll be happy to talk to anyone.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Yeah, and hang around. There might be some questions for you too. But I want to be sure to turn to Graham Hughes from City Roots Community Land Trust to give Graham a chance to share his experience.
Hi, everyone. My name is Graham. As Glenn said, I'm with City Roots Community Land Trust. We are currently hosting a Vista in the third year of a project that we're actually sharing with another organization called Taproot Collective. We co-host the Vista together, and they split time between our two organizations. The focus of our project over the last 3 years has mostly been around the acquisition, redesign, and redevelopment of 3 community gardens in the Beechwood neighborhood. These gardens were at one point owned by the city, and the gardens existed on the plots, but with the support of our Vista in year 1, we were able to secure a grant that brought together several partners, including Taproot and City Roots, to acquire these plots of land, totally redesign them based on a bunch of community engagement, community feedback and research that was also conducted by Vista, and then purchase supplies and rebuild and redesign these gardens. That building, the redesign happened in the second year of our project here, and was really led by our second year AmeriCorps Vista volunteer. And now in our third year, the gardens are ready for programming to begin. And as the spring begins and as we go into the summer, the Taproot Collective will be running a workforce development and youth employment programming out of these gardens. They'll be growing food. There'll be space for hosting community events. One of the gardens is going to have like a small kind of stage and community gathering area in it, which is very exciting. And all of this has been made possible by our partnership with the Rochester Youth Year Program and the incredible AmeriCorps volunteers that we've hosted. I can say, from my own experience with AmeriCorps and with the Rochester Youth Year Program, it's a really wonderful program. Like Aaron and Melanie were saying, the people that join Rochester Youth Year, and I think AmeriCorps in general, are just very excited to be a part of the program. They're all incredibly smart, incredibly talented and capable people who all bring their own unique perspectives and skill sets to the position. In my experience, both as a Vista and supervising Vistas, the Vistas are only here for a year. So there's a period of time at the beginning of every new Vista where, just like with any new staff member, it takes time for them to acclimate and kind of get up to speed. But once that happens, every Vista that I have worked with and supervised has really made the position their own and become just an incredible member of our team with City Roots and with the Taproot Collective. I personally also really enjoy the mentoring aspect of this role. My AmeriCorps supervisor way back in 2017, somebody I'm still in touch with to this day. We have coffee every couple of months. He's a very good friend and still a mentor of mine, and he made such a difference in my experience that I just hope to provide something as close to that as I can to my past vistas, and I was actually just on the phone with one of them this morning, catching up about her new job, which is very exciting. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough about the program, about the ways that these young folks contribute to our organizations, to the project specifically, the Partners for Places project that we've had them working on, but also to just like general communications, to fundraising, to community engagement, really anything and everything. Our vistas have contributed over the years, and if you and your organizations feel like this program is a good fit for you, I can't encourage you to apply enough, because it's just a really wonderful opportunity that we have here in Rochester. And I'm definitely biased because I went through the program and it was a wonderful experience for me. But I think that aside, it's definitely worth it.
Thanks so much, Graham. With that, I'm going to open it up to questions, and in doing so, I'm going to pause our recording so that you feel free to share my screen again, and I'll let Emerson bring it home.
Awesome. Thanks, Glenn. And thank you all for joining us today. This last slide has some ways that you can get in contact with us. If you scan the QR code, it takes you to our link tree. I'm also going to be dropping a few links in the chat as well. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. We're at Rochester Youth Year for both of them. We've got our website, youthyear.org, and I've also put our Urban Fellows site below. And in terms of who to contact for more questions about your applications as sites, you would be able to reach Glenn at glenn.sarasaletti@rochester.edu. And that is it for this afternoon. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you, Erin, Melanie, and oh my God, excuse me, and the rest of our friends for joining us today. Yeah, thank you so much, and have a great night.
Thank you all.